What this money will do is mean that our armed forces, as they currently are, will be lethal, more sustainable, more resilient, and that therefore strengthens our conventional deterrence and ultimately makes it less likely that our adversaries will try and take us on.
So this extra 2.5% by 2030, is that a significant announcement, and is it enough, James?
Yes, I mean, look, to both of your questions. Yes, it's a significant announcement. Just, I mean, put it in perspective. If the Prime Minister had done something different, if he had said, "I've got 75 billion pounds worth of announcement, and I'm going to do 40 billion on hospitals, 20 billion on schools, 15 billion on roads, or the whole 75 billion on tax cuts," that would be incredible news. And instead, he's chosen to put 75 billion on defence. That's the first time in my lifetime that a prime minister would have chosen that priority in an election year. I think it's the right decision. It reflects the geopolitical reality of the world around us, and that the first priority of government is the defence and security of the realm. But the sort of scale of it is seismic. Now, people will argue that it should be more, it should come faster. I think that is churlish on a day like today, when the scale of the announcement is what it is. And what this money will do is mean that our armed forces, as they currently are, will be lethal, more sustainable, more resilient, and that therefore strengthens our conventional deterrence and ultimately makes it less likely that our adversaries will try and take us on.
Right. Now, some of our listeners, James, who pay attention to defence issues might remember Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister, speaking at the NATO summit in Madrid in June 2022. Just have a listen back.
And the logical conclusion of the investments on which we propose to embark, of these decisions, is that we will reach 2.5% of GDP on defence by the end of the decade.
So that's the former Prime Minister, and that was Boris Johnson setting out the priorities and the urgency and the need for this spending. Why, some may wonder, why has it taken Rishi Sunak 2 years to restate that policy now?
Well, I think the Prime Minister would say that he inherited a financial situation in which he didn't feel he was able to make that commitment. And in fairness, when I was seeing who I might support in the two leadership elections that have happened since Boris Johnson made that speech in Madrid, Rishi was very clear that he did not feel able to match the 2.5 commitment that Boris and Liz had both previously made.
Right.
And I, huge credit to him that he has both achieved the fiscal conditions he feels he needs to achieve, but B, that he, as a consequence of, he's in the hot seat. He's in these G7, G20 summits all the time.
Yes.
Think about the meetings he's had over the last couple of weeks, reflecting on the threat from Iran. And he's come to the obvious conclusion, but with an enormous political choice. Go back to that point I made up front, John, about all the things he could have spent 75 billion pounds on in a manifesto as a promise for the next parliament.
Yes.
And instead it's gone on defence and security. I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, well, I don't doubt the validity of the spending commitment or the need for it. We discuss it on this program almost every day. But I guess an election coming, that won't be insignificant in the calculation, will it?
No, but look, I mean, all political strategists over the last sort of 6-7 general elections would have told you that the only thing that really matters is an auction over a commitment to the NHS, or maybe the sort of pension spending, whatever else. There are more immediately politically advantageous things that you could announce that sort of money to spend on.
Yes.
Now, I think that that reflects the Prime Minister being in the hot seat and reacting to the world around him and the threat that he can see to the UK interest, and the fact that, as he set out in his speech, you need to give industry the cue to start scaling. It can't just be switched on like that. So this is the right time to make the commitment. But I also think that the British public are increasingly aware of the challenge to our national security. And so I think that the sort of political importance of defence is increasing.
Yeah. No, I've been accepting, if you like, for the purpose of our conversation, the importance of this spending and the importance of national defence at a really difficult time. But also, the fiscal questions do need to be addressed. I mean, while the Prime Minister makes this pledge, or the Prime Minister and his senior ministers are also promising to abolish national insurance. That's a cost of £46 billion. And if there's going to be a pre-election budget, there'll be more tax giveaways there too. I mean, how could it be possible to promise all of those things?
Well, I'm going to indulge in the luxury of no longer being the government spokesperson and not.
It's a legitimate question, James.
No, John. I'm not. But I simply don't know the answer, and I'd be speculating if I did. My understanding from the conversation I had with the Prime Minister and the Defence Secretary earlier today is that he has taken the decision to spend the proceeds of quite a big cross-Whitehall efficiency drive on this, and that has consequences for other parties who might have had their eye on that money for other things, particularly if those parties go on to match this commitment on defence.
Which is why I do wonder if this is also, as other challenges have been, other policy announcements in the last recent days have been challenges to the Labour Party. Now, the clip we heard there from Boris Johnson.
There's a thing there. There is a thing there, John. Of course there is. But I would prefer to not make the partisan point. I would actually make it. I'd turn the issue around. If Keir Starmer and his team were to, yes, it would cost them a number of other policies because they would have to spend that money on this instead. But the message it sends to Putin of complete political consensus within the UK on defence spending is enormously powerful, and in itself contributes to the deterrent effect of increased defence capability. So I'll let other colleagues try and make more nakedly political points. I actually hope that Labour will see the strategic advantage, not politically, but for the UK internationally, in matching the commitment, because I think that sends a real message to allies and adversaries alike.
Right, but a spending commitment can have merit in its own rights and be a political stroke. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Agreed.
I mean, the Boris Johnson promise we heard there back in 2022, that was just a few weeks before he was evicted from number 10 Downing Street. Would it be too cynical to say that this is also a self-defence policy for Rishi Sunak himself, as well as for Britain and the West?
Well, I would choose to view it more charitably. You can apply whatever analysis you want. I think that he's seen the situation that's around us. I think he's seen the real danger of the NATO summit in Washington in July, followed the week after by the Republican convention, and the need for European allies to turn up in Washington with a new tune to dance to. And I think what you saw, it was significant that Jens Stoltenberg was on the podium with Rishi in Poland today, because I think a bit like that summit at Celtic Manor in 2010, where Cameron and Obama achieved the 2% baseline, I think that there's a big opportunity for Sunak, Biden, Stoltenberg to try to make 2.5 the new baseline come the Washington summit. And that would confound an awful lot of the criticism of European NATO allies that you're likely to hear from the Republican convention otherwise.
All right.